Alright, so I'm working on the lower control arms. I've already removed the pivot shafts. I've bought new pivot shafts. These have the ability to run grease through the pivot shaft through a fitting, and that grease will pour into here. Now I've got essentially 3 different ways I can dice this up. This is the original design. This is what essentially I took out on the new pin. So these pins, if I were to buy factory type pins, they would have a recess here. If you can see that this has a line around it, a ring. That ring is because this metal shaft up to here, or this pivot shaft, has a sleeve on it. That sleeve is the old one of these on the original. This is a replacement from PEST. This is I believe this is a rubber bushing. This is not a poly graphite. And so the first option is to cut this off using a chisel on both sides and break it apart. Pressing, once that's removed, once this sleeve here is removed from the pivot shaft, is to press the pivot shaft into the new bushing, the bushing assembly. At that point I would have this attached to here, pressed on, and then I could insert this into here. This sleeve, I don't know if you can see, but there's a line here, right? And what folks are doing online or on YouTube is they'll weld a washer, a big washer to here, and then they'll press out using that washer as a backing, so you can put something, a piece of metal on this side, and press this sleeve out, essentially replacing the entire bushing assembly. So this would go back in, this would come out. It's just this sleeve. Or I can leave that in there and use the poly graphite bushing. If there's no damage, I could press this in here, and then I could essentially reuse this. But I'd already bought the kit, and the reason why I bought the kit was just because this was mauled up right here, and I didn't want to use it. I didn't want to go through all this trouble and be stuck with a bad job. So I went ahead and ordered new pivot shafts, which are these, forged, but as you can see, they have the same diameter as the old, but the old with the metal sleeve on it. So now these would get pressed in here. First I would press in the poly graphite bushing, then press in these. And then the third option is, if I wanted to, is the kit comes with just the outer portion of this previous bushing assembly. So I could still do what I was talking to earlier about welding the metal washer on here, pressing this sleeve out, and then re-pressing this sleeve in. Then I would put these two pieces in here. This appears to be smooth and fine. I don't see any issues. I may roll with this one. I don't want to do unnecessary work. I don't want to skip steps, but I didn't want to do unnecessary work because I don't think I'm getting much value by putting this in here. These came with the kit. I'm gonna try this. I'll link videos where other folks have done this. Obviously I've used the sandblaster on there. I'll probably go through it again, get some of that other stuff. I'm not going to sit here and get every little piece off of old paint, primarily grime, and then I'll go ahead and paint these. Here is this one I have not done. I've just cleaned it with mineral spirits. Just wiped it down, or I mean, sorry, parts cleaner. Just kind of squirted it, scrubbed it with a nylon brush. But one thing I wanted to point out is this tapered end here, and then this rounded off edge. You know, when trying to determine where to place this, obviously we want the holes to line up so we can get to it. And my first thought was, since this was kind of tapered in, that this would kind of line up with that. But as you go and you look, you can see that the hole isn't quite centered, or the bolt isn't quite centered with the hole. Having said that, pulling out a caliber, I can see that this is .48 or .489, and this is .578. So flipping this over shows that there is kind of a proper way. I think I'm going to clamp here and work it back. A lot of folks were clamping it here, tack welding it here, and working their way down. But if I put vice grips here or tack weld it, and then start working my way down, everything should line up where it needs to be. With the adjuster in place, this socket can get in here just fine. So I'm not entirely happy with the way things came out. There's less play, but still more than what I was desiring. I did cut this off and try to pinch it in and re-weld it. I've attached the plate that came with the kit. So anyway, here's the end result. I sandblasted them, so I'm going to paint them, and then the next step is to add the pivot shafts. Alright, so these are the finished product from a painting perspective. Again, no beating. I did see some people do it successfully without damaging anything, but you know, I have this. I bought it for this purpose. Okay. Good for this. Alright, I'll put this one down. See here. That looks pretty good. This lower control arm on. So. Okay. This can go back on. This washer. What's that? Alright, so far the hardest part was messing with this lower shock. I had to bolt the lower ball joint onto my new brake assembly, and then I can add that on there. I'll put these on here in a few minutes.